Hello, hello, hello. My name is Madison, and welcome to the Madison channel. If you are new here, please like, comment, subscribe, and press that bell notification button so you know exactly when I post a new video. And if you are returning, I love you. Thank you for coming. We are on the road to 500 subscribers, and I'm feeling so blessed and so excited. So, yeah. Today we are back with another installment of Black Girl Reacts, and for this Black Girl Reacts, we are going to be watching a very quick, really good documentary on YouTube. I'll link it down in the description below. From the channel Real Stories, they do amazing documentaries that are just YouTube content for free. So if you're ever in search of a documentary you want to watch, or something you want to watch a documentary but you don't know how to find one, go to their channel because honestly their stuff is insane. Like, the quality is so good. So, and it ranges in topics. So anyway, for this documentary, we are going to be continuing down the rabbit hole of Agent Orange. As you know, I did a True Crime and Society video about Agent Orange, and I decided that I would just do a documentary reaction on it as well, just so that I feel like with the effects of Agent Orange, there needs to be a visual component so you can see and understand what actually went on and how detrimental this particular chemical is, not only ecologically, but physically to the human body. And I think the best way to express that is through, obviously, a visual medium. As I said in the Agent Orange video, I went to Vietnam in high school, and we met a couple people who had been exposed to Agent Orange throughout our journey. And it was one of the most meaningful trips that I've ever been on. And like I said, if I haven't in that video, I will in this video point out or put in some video or pictures of me in Vietnam. I had hair then, so I look a lot different. Definitely skinnier. But anyway. Okay. What else do I want to say? If you don't know what Agent Orange is, or if you're curious about kind of more about what it did, where it came from, and what population of people it affects the most, I would go down to my True Crime and Society video. Please, it's below. I'll link it. And you can see my whole explanation about Agent Orange and the Vietnam War and my experience in Vietnam. So, yeah. Today, the intro is going to be kind of short. I don't want to talk too much because I want to get straight into the content. I haven't seen this documentary. I've seen it, but it's been a really long time, so it'll feel like watching it for the first time, which I'm really excited about. And, oh yeah, again, this is Asian American and Pacific Islander month, which is May, and History Month. So this whole month I'm doing stories that center around Asian people and things like that. So I did a True Crime and Society episode on Agent Orange. Obviously, to start this off, I'm doing this Agent Orange documentary reaction video. I'm also doing I recorded it but haven't edited it. I did a True Crime and Society episode about the Asian spa murders that happened in 2021. And I'm doing a commentary on the Jubilee Middle Ground episode among Black people and Asian people, and why there's not a lot of solidarity in our communities. So I'm excited about that. That's kind of more of a fun thing. But yeah, so look out for my content, child. That's what we have going for the month of May. And yeah, so without further ado, we are going to get into this episode. Also, let me pause right here. How do we like the beanie? Not the beanie, the beret. I got this 2 years ago, and I just don't know if it works for me, if I look crazy, if I look kooky. I don't know. Comment down below if you think I look cute. But I thought the yellow and the blue really went together, so I was like, I'm doing that. Just even if I look kind of kooky. I feel like I look cute. You let me know. Anyway, we're going to get into this video, so stay tuned, babes. Ooh, and I take that back. This is not from Real Stories. Real Stories is another good place to watch free, amazing documentaries. This is actually from Unreported World, which is another place that just does amazing shit. Amazing documentaries.
For the country's leader during the Vietnam War. It's more than 40 years since the conflict ended, but its effects are still felt everywhere. This is Thu's maternity hospital in Ho Chi Minh City. Now, Dr. Phu is based there, and she's a tireless campaigner when it comes to making people all over the world aware of the connection between Agent Orange and children born with deformities. I'm here to visit something called a Peace Village, one of 13 she has set up. She believes many of the children in them have been affected by Agent Orange, a defoliant dropped by US forces. Everybody wants to speak to you.
Yeah.
This is the Peace Village.
Yeah.
Would you mind showing me some of the children? Tell me about this
Dr.
place,
Nguyen
how
Di
it started
Gok
and why
is
it started.
internationally respected for her work. Though she's 77, she feels she can't fully retire. She takes me first to meet a little girl called Cham.
You see, Cleft Valley here. Sao con có bú được không? Tăng cân.
So this is a child whose
Yes.
parents were affected by Agent Orange.
He's blind.
So I just want to say again, in that Agent Orange video, sorry if I'm yelling, in the Agent Orange video that I filmed, a True Crime in Society one, what one of our tour guides on our trip to Vietnam said to us was, the last person to be affected by Agent Orange has yet to be born. And again, this is why this particular poison, I guess poison is the best way to put it, is so insidious, because if you're exposed to it, it gets passed down to your children, it gets passed down to your children's children until, you know, you get farther and farther from the original person who was affected by it. Now, in the rural areas of Vietnam, it's in everything. It's in the water, it's in the food, it's in the fish, it's in, you know, other livestock, it's in the soil, it's everywhere. So they're constantly being exposed to it by living in those rural areas where the bulk of the Agent Orange was dropped during the war. So when that term comes to mind, the last person to be affected by Agent Orange has yet to be born, because it is such a persistent poison, and it passes through generation to generation to generation, and people are still actively being exposed to it because that's where they live and they have no ability to move anywhere else. It just is going to continue to affect more and more people down the line. So I just want to say that. I think that's just a really important thing to say. But yeah.
Are all signs of children who have been affected by Agent Orange?
Yeah. You see, 5 deformities recognized by the scientific community. First is neurotype defects.
Yeah.
Deformities of sensory organs.
Yeah.
The Siamese twins, cleft palate and cleft lip, and deformities of limbs. Those deformities are common in Vietnam.
Dr. Phu told me that a research study she conducted showed that birth defects in Agent Orange sprayed areas were 3 or more times higher than other places.
Here we take care mainly the children affected by the Agent Orange. About 60% of them have parents directly exposed to the Agent Orange during war or after the war.
But the war was years ago. Why is it still affecting children now? This is 3rd and 4th generation.
One thing is that the dioxin can be transmitted from mother to the babies.
The Agent Orange used during the war contained a dangerous chemical called dioxin.
Dr. Feuer and many scientists believe it can lead to genetic mutations. Studies where mice were given dioxin showed this. It's hard to prove in humans, but Dr. Feuer herself is convinced that generations of Vietnamese children are being affected.
What pisses me off is, like, clearly something's going on here. You know how in my True Crime and Society, I'm going to keep referencing it just because it's on the same topic, I talked about how the United States government basically set these limits, especially for the soldiers. Now, the soldiers who were spraying the Agent Orange were also exposed to it. So they came home, had their wives exposed to it, and their children were also born with, you know, different birth defects and things like that, developmental issues, behavioral issues, things like that. It varies in severity, but they were told by the United States government that Agent Orange was so harmless. So they'd be sprayed with it, they'd be spraying it, they'd be exposed to it, and little did they know, one, they were about to get really, really sick, but their whole legacy and line of their gene pool was about to get sick because of their exposure to Agent Orange. But when it came to paying people out for said Agent Orange exposure that they had said was harmless, they only paid specific people out under specific characteristics. I think they only paid, like, it was like less than 500 people out from the exposure to Agent Orange, when, like, I think it was over 70,000, either 30 or 70,000 people had filed with the veterans and the U.S. government to get a payout because they had claims that they were exposed to Agent Orange. And under those terms, why so few people got paid out was you had to directly prove that Agent Orange was the cause for these birth defects in your family, right? So with that, verbiage means everything. And if there isn't a through line where, okay, but you have parents who have certain genes or whatever, and it's possible that your kid could have had these specific birth defects outside of you being exposed to Agent Orange, when we all know the truth. And I think it pisses me off because that was such a great exchange where it was like, okay, we're third, fourth generation away from the Vietnam War, and kids currently are being born with birth defects that are directly connected to the fact that their parents are or were exposed to Agent Orange. And to me, it's obvious, probably to you as a viewer, it's obvious, just in the sense that it's like clearly there wasn't these similar deformities that keep happening in Vietnam, particularly in places that were heavily sprayed, where, like the doctor said, 3 times more likely to have these similar defects. Clearly there's a commonality, and that commonality is Agent Orange. But in science, which I get, the scientific process, you have to be able to prove without a shadow of a doubt. What makes me sad is because there is room for wiggle room in terms of proving that it is Agent Orange, that is causing these children to have these birth defects or die or be stillborn or whatever. The U.S. government will not take responsibility for that. Do you know what I mean? If they don't have to take responsibility, we won't take responsibility. If there's no real, if there's no videotaped, real hard concrete evidence that no one could deny without a shadow of a doubt, then we will try and find a way as a governmental system to not have to pay these people what they're owed, help clean up efforts and pay for that. We will not take responsibility for what we did to this country, for what we did to these people, and how they're still suffering to this day. And that irks me so bad. Let's continue.
I get up.
What's her name?
Kit.
Kit. And this.
Okay, so sweet. I love I forgot what his name is. I just said it, but he is so sweet. Like, that was such a cute exchange. Little Kit, so cute and happy. I love that.
Yes, come.
Because Loy was born in an area affected by Agent Orange, one of the senior doctors told me they think there's a good chance his disability is dioxin related.
So you sleep in this room. Tell me about when you were a baby. Do you remember much about when you were a baby?
Khi tôi 4 tuổi, gia đình tôi khó khăn, nhà nghèo nên mới gửi Lợi vào đây.
Would you rather be living at home with your family?
Đến ngay bây giờ, và dần thời gian lớn và hiện tại bây giờ thì cảm thấy sống ở đây như một gia đình của mình, một gia đình lớn. Ở đây có anh, có em và chia sẻ với cho các em những gì mình đã biết.
But I mean, the harsh reality is, if what Dr. Furt is saying about the connection between Agent Orange and the deformities that these kids are suffering is true, you know, she says 60% of them, you know, are connected to Agent Orange, then the harsh reality is they are war victims. And war victims, they're paying for a war that happened over half a century ago. And the sad thing is, most of us have forgotten about it.
Agent Orange was essentially a weed killer, but much, much stronger. It was used by the American forces to destroy the jungle their enemy used for cover. The production process caused contamination with the most toxic form of dioxin, known as TCDD. The levels in Agent Orange make it one of the most dangerous chemicals ever manufactured.
So, again, if you've watched my first video, you know that the TCDD, you know I explained it in there. What pisses me off is that even to their own people, the American military industrial complex told these people, yo, this is completely harmless. You just spray it and it'll help us win the war. You can be exposed to it. You can load up the sprayers with it. You can load up the entire airplane with it so you can spray it out all over Vietnam. And if it gets on you, don't worry, it's harmless. And we're hearing that no. The level of dioxin and the level of TCDD, just by its chemical compound alone, makes it extremely hazardous. And they know that. So it's like, why are you telling people it's harmless, it's not a big deal, and then having them be exposed to it in such intense ways, and then they come home and start getting sick and start getting ill, and then their kids are having birth defects and all of these things, and then you won't pay them? Like you said in the clip before, these children, these people are war victims from a war that happened 50 years ago. You know, it's just sick. Like, and this is why I want to talk about it as a true crime story, because it's like, this was deliberate. This was premeditated at a point. And it's just sad that we're just, as a governmental system, washing our hands of responsibility because of technicalities, when we should be helping clean all of this out of the earth here, doing what we can to detoxify specific areas that we totally bombed. We need to be helping and paying and helping these people who are affected by Agent Orange. This is chemical warfare. Like, these are war victims. Still, this is chemical warfare 50 years after the war happened. It's crazy.
Ở trên trời thì máy bay này, rải chất độc xuống. Và khi đó thì những người lính ở ngoài mặt trận mà bị nhiễm cái đó, bị hít phải cái đó, thì người ta sẽ chảy máu tai.
Mr. Sun is a decorated Vietnam War veteran. He tells us he's the only one in his platoon that survived the war.
18 tuổi đời, muôn dặm sông pha vì tổ quốc. Khi mà chất độc rải xuống thì phải đổ nước ra bịt mũi. Thế còn một ngày sau thì lá cây ở cái vùng đó rụng hết. Cây trơ trụi cành để làm lộ ra các cái mục tiêu quân sự.
Were you directly affected by Agent Orange? Did it hit you?
Tôi là những người mà trực tiếp hít phải cái đó. Rồi lại cái đó nó xuống đất, xuống nước thì mình lại nấu ăn. Lại ăn bằng cái nước đấy, là ăn vào trong đường thực quản này.
You see that? Like, Jesus, like, it's, oh my gosh. First of all, if you are able to spray an entire jungle and the next day all the leaves drop, get away. That is not safe. That is just beyond unsafe for you to inhale. And not only did they inhale it, like he said, it got into the ground, it got into the water. So they were drinking the chemicals, they were breathing the chemicals, and they were eating the chemicals. He was the only one of his entire platoon to survive. He said when they would breathe in the chemicals, when they would spray and they would breathe in the chemicals, that their ears would bleed. And they were telling people that this was just a harmless, like, plant thing. The government, the bodies this government has is, like, crazy. Oh, what's our body count as the United States military industrial complex? That's a body count I'm worried about. Because this is insane.
Sun's daughter Toy, who is 41, is severely disabled and is
Okay, just her skin is flawless. She's 41. She looks literally 13. She looks amazing. Toy. She looks like skin flawless, bitch.
classified by the government as an Agent Orange victim because of her father's exposure during the war. Based on the limited studies that have been done, the Vietnam Red Cross estimate those affected by Agent Orange at around 3 million, of whom 150,000 are children with birth defects. The government provides a monthly payment to over 200,000 families.
Thúy là câm, điếc, mù, liệt.
Their son Hung is 38 and a celebrated monochord musician.
Okay. He looks so young. They all look so young. I just have to point that out. 38? Bitch wear. Wow.
Musician and composer. He's gradually gone blind.
You and your sister and your parents are known as Agent Orange victims. How does that make you feel?
Năm hơn 10 tuổi, một tí khoảng 12 tuổi thì mắt phải của tôi, con mắt còn lại thì bắt đầu có những cái dấu hiệu là nó kém dần đi. Bắt đầu đi khám bác sĩ rồi bắt đầu nghe mọi người nói nhiều hơn, và ở cái tuổi này thì bắt đầu cũng đã có hiểu được rất là nhiều rồi, thì mới biết được những cái thông tin là cái chất độc da cam thì nó có thể ảnh hưởng đến cái sức khỏe, không phải chỉ là một thế hệ mà có thể là còn có những thế hệ sau này nữa. Nó để lại một cái dấu ấn ở trong cái tuổi thơ của mình.
Do you ever feel angry or frustrated at what has happened to you?
Cũng không tránh khỏi những cái suy nghĩ căm giận, là vì tại sao mà cái cuộc chiến tranh nó lại mang tới những cái điều mà có lẽ nó đi ngược lại với các cái giá trị nhân văn tốt đẹp của con người đến như vậy.
But they're also worried about the fact there are still areas heavily contaminated with dioxin.
One of them is Da Nang Air Base, which is right behind me, and it's been quoted of having dioxin levels that are 350 times higher than the international safety standards. Now, we've been told that there are US specialists in there at the moment carrying out a clean-up operation. But what I think is absolutely nuts is that the only thing that's separating the Vietnamese population from one of the most contaminated places on the planet is a wire fence.
Da Nang was the main US air base during the war, where huge stockpiles of Agent Orange were stored. The chemical residue remained, seeping into Da Nang's water supply and getting into the food chain. The US government has donated millions in aid to clean up Da Nang and other hotspots, working with the Vietnamese government.
What I think is good to know from that is that I think, here's the thing, it's complicated because, like I said, when it came to paying out those people, you had to show clear, unequivocal proof that it's Agent Orange directly from us. You know what I'm saying? In this case with Da Nang, the air base, we created the air base. We built that air base. You know what I mean? We stored the Agent Orange here. This is all documented stuff. So it's undeniable that because this was our territory during the Vietnam War and we stored stockpiles of Agent Orange here, and there's still dioxins to this day in the soil, in the water supply, in the food chain because of this, and all the levels of dioxin are 300 times more than any other place, then that's the clear unequivocal proof where it's like, okay, what are you going to blame? You can't blame anybody for this. So that's why we're spending the money to help clean it up. But when it comes to things, when it comes to the people, when it comes to the rural areas, when it even comes to when I was talking about how during the war, we were actually bombing Laos and Cambodia at the same time, which was illegal because they were neutral in the war. And because we were doing that and didn't want a paper trail to that, all the people who flew into Laos and Cambodia from the U.S. government and sprayed Agent Orange all around would definitely be denied a payout because they weren't supposed to be there. And that would mean that they were doing something illegal, which is bombing and terrorizing neutral countries. So even when they're dead ass wrong, they still find a loophole. In this case with Da Nang and the air base, you can't blame anybody else. You can't scapegoat anybody else. So that's why they have to pay for these particular hotspots where it's obvious that it was us and us stockpiling the Agent Orange in that particular place. You know what I mean?
Their dad served in the army after the war, but went to areas that had been sprayed.
And he believes that he may have passed on the effects to his young son, who's now in Da Nang Hospital fighting for his life. I'm going to go and meet him.
Diep has had heart problems all of his life, but was recently rushed to hospital when things took a turn for the worse. His parents Ming and Hai have to take it in turns to give him constant care.
Cháu hiện giờ nó đang mạch. Chung là bác sĩ nói với cháu là hiện giờ là nó bị suy tim giai đoạn cuối thì rất nặng. Thì là bác sĩ nói là cái thuốc mang như là lấy tăng thêm thuốc nên là hiện giờ là đang điều trị là chừng nào là hai chừng đó thôi chứ chừng bác sĩ cũng không biết nói gì hơn.
At the moment, he can't lie down because it's too painful. He has to sleep propped up.
Mấy chỗ có ai giúp cho cậu, nếu không tao chỉ đồ cũng được tự sót thôi, chứ không đau quá.
He needs a heart transplant.
Yeah.
And how much would it cost?
Bác sĩ nói là cũng là nằm trên cái dạng tiền tỷ chứ không phải là tiền trăm.
So it's about $40,000. And how will you get that money?
Yeah, không thể đó được.
What do you think has caused Diep's problems?
Cho nên trời là cũng nghĩ là cũng do mà đi lính rồi nằm ở một cái vùng đất coi như là xa xôi, coi như là chỗ mà có thuốc độc này kia của.
Diep's heart defect is on the list of conditions that the Vietnamese government associate with Agent Orange, but his family could also just be unlucky. I asked Diep's doctor what he thinks.
Speaking to his parents, they believe that his illness could have been caused by Agent Orange because his father worked in the army and he walked through contaminated fields.
Anything can happen. So until now, the exactly cause is not clear.
The problem is, not only have they got to deal with their son who is in so much pain, but they don't know the reason.
But medicine field have limited. Yeah, so we know what is happening in that body, but we don't know the cause exactly.
There's no test that can prove a genetic illness has been caused by Agent Orange.
That's such an important thing to say, just in the sense that it's like, because of that, that's why that verbiage when it comes to the United States government making payouts is there. Because you can't be like, oh, this genetic issue, the defect that you're dealing with can't necessarily be 100% connected to the existence or the exposure of Agent Orange. That's kind of circumstantial evidence, if you know anything about circumstantial evidence. It just so happens that they think because they were exposed to this that it has to do with Agent Orange. But like they said, there's no way to test for that to see the cause of why Dieppe has that heart issue, and had always had that heart issue. So I don't know. That's why it's complicated, because to me, if there's commonality in terms of birth defects, commonality with at least one parent in the army, commonality with being exposed to contaminated areas or living in contaminated areas, to me, that's proof enough. But because of that verbiage, it's not proof enough. So
He believes his village is still affected by it.
Xin chào. Ming, I'd really love for you to show me how this area was impacted by Agent Orange.
Được chứ. Thì ở ngồi bước ra đây thôi chứ đâu xa đâu. Đứng thấp lên được.
Yep, down here.
Còn ở đây là họ trồng lúa coi như là nó lên, nó có cây, nó cũng vàng rồi nói chung là cái hạt nó cũng lép. Cũng là bị mất mùa, không thu hoạch được.
So in this area, can you not grow any more crops?
Không thể trồng được, trồng là nó chết.
Do you think the reason for the poor crops is because of Agent Orange?
Đó thì tôi không biết, nhưng mà tôi nghĩ là chất độc hóa học. Nó thấy rã quanh một cái vùng như thế là để cho coi như là cây cối nó chết thôi. Mình nếu nó chết thì con người không phải ảnh hưởng, chứ còn không thể thoát được.
We were told by the Da Nang Association for Victims of Agent Orange that it was stored near here, but that no tests have been done to check dioxin levels. So Min can't know for sure, but he's convinced his family have been at risk.
Hello?
see what I told you I'm going to keep plugging my True Crime and Society video about this because it's way more detailed, obviously. This is what I mean about listening to people who have direct material experience with stuff instead of talking over them. This man is a man who lives in a rural area, and just by his observation that nothing can grow here, you can't grow crops here, you can't do anything here, he came to the obvious conclusion that this area was sprayed during the war. Which leads you to believe, if you still can't bear crops here, that the whole earth in this area is hugely affected by the presence of Agent Orange. And then to later hear, oh yeah, it was confirmed by the US government that this was one of the areas where they stored stockpiles of Agent Orange. You know what I mean? Like, this man is just going based off of the land, which is what I love about indigenous people, indigenous cultures, and people who just are tapped into the fucking earth and the land. We know when shit's wrong. If things can't grow, if the fish are looking weird, if the animals are acting weird, we know what's good. You know what I mean? And so for that to not be corroborated, because it's like, okay, but in Eurocentric spaces in Western cultures, you have to have the real proof. And the proof to them is, I haven't been able to grow anything here, any crops here in 50 fucking years. The proof to the United States would be actually getting this area tested for dioxins. But that means you're dependent on people to test this space, whether or not they'll come out, whether or not you can afford to have them tested. All of these things are now accrued by you in order to get the answers you deserve when you already know the answer. You know you live in a place that's affected by Agent Orange. You know they sprayed it. You know you can't grow crops here, but you can't get anything done about it until you fall into the bureaucratic, westernized system of going through all the motions in order to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed to get some sort of help. And so think about that, right? Like I said, if they are living in a place that was sprayed and it's in the food supply, you saw those cows eating that grass. It's in the soil. It's in the plants that are able to grow. So you have to know that it's in the food chain. So these people are being actively re-exposed to Agent Orange while also having to take care of their children who were exposed because of the war. So it's just like an ongoing positive feedback loop that will not be disrupted, because that means taking responsibility, and we're not trying to do that.
Bây giờ tôi thấy con người không phải, nhưng mà vấn đề mà yếu mà
Why did you want to come back home?
sao không nhớ em, nhớ ông nội bà nội. Con còn muốn về nhà để không khóc không thấy.
I meet the rest of the family.
I know your son, he also has problems as well.
Nó bị đau coi như là một bẩm sinh, vì không thoát vị thành bụng, coi như là nó không có da bụng.
Do you mind if we see your stomach?
Cái bụng nó kêu là nó xấu lắm.
Với đây là cái lớp da để của bò để đáp vào vô đây.
Because Min can't prove he was exposed to dioxin, the family can't get any compensation.
You can see how much they really cherish having Diep back home, and it was Diep who actually requested to be brought back home because he wanted to be around the people who love him. But what just keeps sticking with me and keeps hitting me is that they will never ever know for sure what has caused their son's illnesses, and all they can do is just enjoy these precious moments that they have left.
Sadly, just a week after my visit, Diep passed away.
And this is the real material consequences of this. And this is why I consider this true crime. Because it's like a bunch of things blocking it. All the stuff that I explained about how in order to get compensation, you need to fall into this westernized system of proof. When the dad clearly was in the military during the Vietnam War and was likely exposed to fucking Agent Orange. So that to me should be proof enough, but because there's no direct way to prove it, you know, even though his heart condition is a direct thing on the list of people who have children who have birth defects who were exposed to Agent Orange in some capacity, his heart condition is on that list. That should be proof to me. But it's not enough proof. So they are not getting helped by the government like, you know, some of the other families are able to. Like the other guy with the white hair and his family. They're getting money from the government because they're able to prove. And I don't know how you prove. I don't know. But maybe because his whole battalion died except for him. I'm not sure. But they're able to get money, and now these people not only have 2 kids who have severe disabilities and require extreme medical attention, and RIP to Diep, but you know they can't work because they have to take care of their children, but they have these crazy medical expenses, and there's a suspicion that has to do with Agent Orange, but they will never know. So they will always be living in this cycle of poverty as their kids get sicker and sicker and sicker. It's just sick. It's fucked up.
The people who cause such crimes, they don't recognize their responsibility. For example, the chemical companies, they still there. They don't have any responsibility. I think everybody must get angry with them.
In 2008, Dr. Phuoc was a key witness when Vietnamese groups tried to sue the US chemical companies that made Agent Orange. They lost because the US courts ruled its use didn't violate the rules of war and that the US government and manufacturers weren't aware of all the risks to human health. Without admitting liability for the effects of Agent Orange, the US government has given $21 million to help disabled people in Vietnam living in sprayed areas. Dr. Phuoc would like more.
And how difficult is it for a family who give birth to a child who's affected by Agent Orange?
First of all, it's to face the people living around. You see, they say that, oh, you have done something bad thing, so that God punished you to give you such a child.
So they get a lot of stigma from the people around because they have
And
Agent
then
Orange children.
most of them are very poor because they live in the spread areas in the war zone. It's very difficult for them to take care of such a child.
La's a success story from the Peace Village. Took up Paralympic swimming, represents Vietnam, and now he's having a photo shoot. Look at him, he's a star.
My friend.
With all of this training you're doing, do you want to try and make it into the team for 2020 for the Paralympics in Tokyo?
I try my best.
What, to win gold?
Gold medal?
Yeah.
Oh no, I think brown.
Bronze? No, you have to think gold. No bronze? No, gold. Oh, you got your medals?
Yes, medal.
Oh, wow. Woo! Look at this. Asian Para Games.
Yes.
Myanmar.
Yeah, Myanmar.
All very special.
I know. I know.
Tell me about your disability, your condition. You know, do you know much about the history and the reasons?
Còn về vấn đề mà bị bệnh di tật như này thì lại không biết và cũng không có quan tâm lắm. Vì hiện tại mình có một cuộc sống rất là tốt, rất là vui vẻ.
You're really confident, smiling all the time. But do you think some of the other children here, do you think they will have more problems when they go out into society?
Người anh lớn muốn chia sẻ và dạy dỗ lại cho các em mình sự tự tin, mạnh mẽ để sau này các em bước ra đời với một. Đối với Lợi, khuyết tật không có là trở ngại gì hết. Đó là chỉ là sự khác biệt với mọi người thôi.
It's about who you are as a person, not your disability.
Yes.
Thank you.
I love Loy's attitude. He's a huge inspiration and perhaps represents the next generation looking forwards in Vietnam.
Okay.
I just love that. I'm sorry. I'm glad it kind of ended with Loy again because he was such a good, like in the beginning when he's talking to the babies, and it's just like, you're such a sweet person. And that to finally end on him and see his character and oh my God, it's just like the love he has for his fellow brothers and sisters. The fact that he just doesn't, he's like, I don't read into that. And he's fucking in the Paralympics. Like, it's crazy. Like, the confidence. And this is kind of where I want to end before we finish everything. There's like a minute left. This is why we need to stop viewing disabled people in the way that we're thought and taught to view them, right? They can contribute to society in ways we never imagined they could. Being on the spectrum, having a physical disability, all of these things are just things that make them unique. That doesn't mean that they're not valuable people. We live in a society that likes to forget that we are the birthers and the creators of thoughts like eugenics and forced sterilization of people with disabilities and black people and brown people, which we're going to get into when I react to Handmaid's Tale eventually. But when you see stuff like this and it's like, wow, like they're just fucking people and it's okay. Like, it's okay. And so I love that they ended with him, just the fact that he's a swimmer and he's in the Paralympics and his life dedication is to instill confidence in his fellow brothers and sisters. His attitude's amazing and I just love it. That was, perfect way to end. So that was the Agent Orange documentary on the YouTube channel Unreported World, and I loved it. It was short and sweet. It's only 23 minutes long. Highly, highly, highly recommend you guys watch it. It just puts things in perspective. It really does. And it upsets me so much that this is not how it has to be. because we could be taking a more active role and taking more responsibility. We could be holding the chemical companies accountable for what they did, because these children who are still being affected are effectively war victims 50 years after the war. And so I recommend this documentary. It's really wonderful, it's beautiful, and it just exposes you to how deep and how insidious the war in Vietnam really was, and how people are still to this day being affected by it. But without further ado, I guess I'll have to say Black Lives Matter and free Palestine until it's black. Okay, hold on. Without further ado, I guess all I have to say is Black Lives Matter and free Palestine until it's backwards. Love you guys.